Enterprise operations are under pressure to move faster, serve customers better, and stay resilient in a world that changes every quarter. Yet the very processes built to create stability have become the biggest blockers of agility. Today, we explore how leaders rebuild their operating models while the business is running at full speed, and why modular, data-driven, customer-centered processes are becoming the new foundation for competitiveness.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into a really high-stakes problem, one that, honestly, almost every established organization is facing.
It's this question of how do you redesign the very machinery of your business while it's, running at full speed.
Exactly. It's this huge paradox. You have these processes that you need for stability and control.
Right. They're how you deliver value.
But in today's world, a world that demands constant change, those very same processes become the main thing holding you back. They stop you from being agile, from being truly customer-focused.
And that's the conflict we're exploring today. We've got a great set of sources that really dig into this urgency around modernizing how you operate.
So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out why those traditional models, the ones built for a predictable world, are failing so badly now. And more importantly, what the roadmap looks like for companies that don't have the luxury of starting from scratch.
Yeah, you really have to frame this by thinking about the ideal first. I mean, imagine a greenfield business, something launched today.
A clean slate.
A completely clean slate. Every single system, every workflow, it's all designed from day one to be flexible, to be data-driven, maybe even autonomous. They have zero legacy baggage.
Whereas existing companies, they're dragging around systems that are decades old.
Decades old, tied down by all sorts of compliance, managed by practices that were invented before the internet even existed.
And that whole struggle is it's perfectly captured by this analogy we kept seeing in the material.
The airplane one.
The airplane one. That process transformation is like fixing an airplane engine mid-flight.
You can't just land the plane to do the work.
You can't. But you know that if you don't fix it, you're going to crash. It's complex, it's risky, but it is absolutely essential. So let's start with that turbulence, the legacy burden.
Right, and the legacy burden isn't just about old tech. That's a common misconception. It's really about an outdated design philosophy.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, these processes were optimized for a world of predictable growth. Efficiency meant standardization, it meant stability. But today, that stability, that's just drag. It's actively slowing you down.
So let's break that down, how that rigidity actually shows up.
Yeah.
The first barrier, I think, is just core inflexibility.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have a process that needs, say, 15 sign-offs to get anything done.
15, right.
Yeah.
And it runs on quarterly batch updates.
It just cannot react. Not when the market is demanding hourly shifts or a new competitor just completely changes the game overnight. It's impossible.
And that inflexibility, that directly leads to the second major problem, right? The customer disconnect.
It's the root cause. Think about, traditional banking or insurance. The internal processes are so siloed, the loan department barely talks to the risk department.
Which doesn't talk to customer service.
Exactly. And so when a customer calls, they expect a single, seamless, real-time view of everything, but the architecture underneath makes that completely impossible.
So the customer just gets bounced around from department to department. The sources really make a compelling point here, that legacy systems were built for transactional efficiency.
Transactional, not experiential.
Right. They deliver the product, technically, but they completely frustrate the person receiving it. They just can't provide that streamlined personal interaction that we all expect now.
That's the critical difference. And then you have the fallout from that, which is operational rigidity. This is where you see all the unnecessary manual work.
The busy work.
All the busy work. Employees are spending their days just bridging gaps between different systems or chasing down paper trails. A modern automated model just eliminates all that friction. Legacy systems need constant human oversight just to enforce rules that should be coded and autonomous.
Which brings us to the last big consequence, the challenge to innovation. Bureaucracy and rigidity go hand in hand.
They love each other.
So if every new idea, every experiment you want to run across teams means you have to rewrite entire system specs and get, a dozen approvals,
Yeah.
you kill innovation before it can even start.
You do. The sources point to speed, collaboration, and experimentation as the sort of three pillars of success now. And legacy processes, by their very nature, they undermine all three.
It's a vicious cycle. No experimentation, no learning, no collaboration, no holistic solutions. And if you can't move fast,
You just become irrelevant.
okay, so we understand the pain. Now we can start to define the cure. There needs to be this fundamental shift, what's often called the renaissance of processes. So what does a modern agile operating model actually look like?
It really means a total departure from that old monolithic way of thinking. You have to move away from building these giant interconnected systems where, changing one little thing breaks everything else.
And that brings us right to the number one trait, which is being composable and modular.
Right.
Think of it like a business built entirely out of like Lego bricks instead of one giant clay statue you sculpted.
That's a perfect analogy. Composability just means your processes are built from smaller independent services. Maybe they're exposed through APIs. So if you need to upgrade your payment system,
You just swap out that one brick.
just swap out the payment component. You don't have to rebuild the entire order management system around it. And that just dramatically cuts down your deployment time and, honestly, the risk.
So the architecture itself is what allows for that rapid reassembly.
Yeah.
Okay, what about trait two? Putting the customer at the absolute center. How do you design for that?
The customer has to become your North Star for how you measure the process. It's not enough anymore to just track internal throughput. You have to use real-time data to see, what's the customer satisfaction? How long is delivery taking? Are we personalizing this effectively?
So the process should actually anticipate needs.
It should. For example, if the system knows a customer's recent history, the process can maybe skip a few standard security checks. It streamlines their experience while still being safe.
That real-time element ties directly into trait three, being agile and adaptive. This isn't just a buzzword. It means the processes are structurally built to pivot fast.
And they have to, whether it's a market shift, a new regulation, or, a global health crisis. Flexibility is everything.
And on the internal side, that brings us to trait four, operational excellence and autonomy.
This is the end goal, really. You want to design processes that are largely self-driving. We're talking about a high degree of automation where the process can monitor its own performance, spot bottlenecks, and even fix minor issues without a human getting involved.
So the role of the employee changes completely.
It shifts entirely. They stop being process executors and become process designers, process strategists.
Reaching that level of autonomy, though, that can feel impossible for listeners who are, running established businesses. It sounds incredibly expensive and complicated.
It can feel that way.
So let's ground this in reality.
Yeah.
Are there actual real-world success stories that prove this mid-flight engine change can be done?
Oh, absolutely. The sources give some great examples that show even big established organizations can do this. Take Amazon's supply chain.
Okay.
What made them so successful wasn't just that they threw money at the problem. It was that they built their logistics to be intensely modular.
So what's a concrete example of that modularity?
Well, think about what happened a few years ago with all the global shipping disruptions and demand spikes. Because their systems were modular, Amazon could essentially plug and play new distribution centers, reroute fulfillment on the fly, and integrate new delivery partners almost instantly.
So the process didn't just bend, it reconfigured itself.
Exactly. The components were never locked together in one monolithic block.
Incredible. Another great example is Domino's. You don't immediately think process innovator when you think of a pizza company,
Yeah.
but they really are.
They are. They figured out that their entire business is based on speed and reliability, so they invested in process automation that went way beyond just online ordering. They use AI for route optimization, for predicting kitchen capacity.
So it's all self-optimizing.
Constantly. The process from the moment you order to the moment of dispatch is always adjusting based on real-time traffic and what's happening in the kitchen. It aligns their entire operation directly with what you, the customer, want. A fast pizza.
And for a huge kind of organizational shift, the example of ING Bank is really powerful, especially because it's such a heavily regulated industry.
Right. Banking is not known for being nimble. The transformation at ING was really about reversing the damage that their rigid processes had caused. Before the change, a single mortgage application might pass through 5 different departments.
Each owning just one little piece of it.
One little piece. The process was slow, it was full of errors, and it was completely disconnected from the actual customer experience.
So how did they fix that?
They adopted the squad model. They basically dismantled the old hierarchies and formed these permanent cross-functional squads. So you'd have the mortgage approval squad, for example.
And that squad has everyone in it.
Everyone you need. Risk analysts, developers, marketers, legal experts. And this is the crucial part. They gave that squad end-to-end ownership of the entire process.
So no more handoffs.
No more handoffs. The squad owned everything from the first customer inquiry to the final payment, and it just dramatically accelerated everything and solved that organizational stiffness.
These cases are great proof, but for someone listening who is in that mid-flight moment right now, where do you even start? Let's get into the best practices for actually doing this.
You have to start where the risk is lowest, but the potential impact is highest.
Which is practice 1. Start small and scale fast. Find a pilot project in one single area. Maybe it's customer onboarding, maybe it's a specific reporting function, and you get a measurable small win.
That's so critical. It builds the muscle memory for how to do this, and it gives you the political capital you need to get buy-in for bigger changes.
And that small team needs to have ownership. That's practice 2. Build cross-functional teams with process ownership. In the old world, IT owned the tech and operations owned the steps.
A recipe for gridlock.
Right. In this new model, a single cross-functional team has to own the entire outcome. That speeds up decisions and keeps everything aligned.
And that ownership model is a perfect fit for practice 3, which is to incorporate agile methodologies. If your team owns the whole process, they can use these short, iterative cycles to constantly refine it.
So you're not aiming for perfection on day 1.
Not at all. You launch a minimum viable process, you get real-world data, and you adjust it every couple of weeks. It minimizes disruption because the changes are small and frequent.
And a key part of that iteration has to be practice 4. Prioritize the customer experience in every single process. This means building in feedback loops.
Real-time feedback loops. You need data that tells you exactly where a customer gets stuck or frustrated, not just where your system logs that a transaction was completed.
For the heavy lifting, then we have practice 5. Invest in automation and AI. This is where you can unlock huge efficiencies.
And you start with the low-value, repetitive stuff first. Think about routine account maintenance or standard inventory checks. You automate those things.
And that frees up your employees to focus on higher value work.
Exactly. Relationship management, strategic thinking, innovating the process itself.
And none of this works if it's just a one-time project. Practice 6 is to establish a culture of continuous improvement.
It has to be a philosophy. Transformation isn't a project with an end date. It has to be embedded in the culture where everyone is always looking for ways to make the process better.
That focus on culture brings us right back to the human side of this. All this change, all this automation, it always hits the biggest roadblock, which is resistance from people.
Resistance is completely natural. Change disrupts routines, it disrupts comfort, it can even feel like it disrupts job security.
So how do leaders manage that fear?
You have to be transparent and direct. Strategy 1 is to communicate the why. It's not enough to just say, we need to be more agile. Employees need to understand that this is about survival. It's about meeting customer demands. It's not just a memo from management about cost cutting. If they see the old way is hurting the company's ability to compete, they're much more likely to get on board.
And you have to prove it's working. Strategy 2. Showcase quick wins. Publicize the successes from those pilot projects.
Be specific. The time for expense approval dropped by 40%. Customer satisfaction scores for onboarding went up 3 points. Show them the tangible, positive impact.
And finally, strategy 3. You leverage internal influence. Engage process champions.
And these aren't just executives. They're respected leaders inside the teams. Mid-level managers, senior specialists, people who can translate the big strategy into daily reality for their peers and address those anxieties head on.
So at the end of the day, it's clear this process renaissance isn't just about new technology. It's a fundamental cultural shift.
It is. It demands a real commitment to continuous high-speed adaptation. The old way of building processes just for control, it's obsolete.
It's not built for the world we're in now.
Not at all. In a world that's constantly changing, having agile, autonomous processes isn't just a nice-to-have advantage for growth, it's truly essential for survival.
A very potent final point. So
Okay.
we'll leave you with this to think about. If you were forced to build your most critical daily process entirely from modular components tomorrow, where would the weakest, most rigid legacy link be, and how quickly could you replace it to ensure your own survival?